How's it going, everybody? This is Cameron Lowe with the Lowdown Podcast, bringing you another episode. And today it's a special one. The big game coming up. Austin, are you excited?
Yes and no. The big game means we're done with football after this. So there's a bittersweetness to it because of that, but I don't think it gets much better than the big lights in the final game of the year. So looking forward to it. And it's two teams that I think a lot of people envisioned being in the big game. So looking forward to a high-powered offense versus a high-powered defense with a big run game. We've got the Eagles, we've got the Chiefs, and it is going to be an exciting matchup. You excited for it?
I am excited. I really do feel like it's a battle of the elites.
Yeah.
There's a few elite teams in the league, and I think these are two of them. Um, And like you said, it's kind of what we thought at the beginning of the season, but all the ups and downs, we've seen Philadelphia come out the gates real slow. And after we saw them collapse last season, not a lot of people really had faith in them fairly, but Saquon brought a whole new element to that offense. Perfect complement to that team and how they run the football. They've always loved to run the football, but they never had it back. And now they're bringing it all together with Jalen Hurts, who's very strong. He's very good at his niche, you know maybe not the most elite thrower of the football, but when it comes to his niche, no one's better at it than Jalen Hurts.
He's a dual threat quarterback, and when you have such a good run game, I think that allows you to be an elite offense, a lot of weapons around him, and they kind of got those kinks out, of course, at the end of last year, but then the beginning of this year, people were still like, I don't know about the Eagles. And then they got hot at the right time, and you're seeing it over the last couple of games.
Yeah, yeah, and it's the Eagles everyone expected to see, and now it's finally coming into true form. And I think we can say the same about the Kansas City Chiefs. Have you been impressed with their game?
Yeah, and we talked about this on our last podcast, but the Chiefs have just continued to get better and better throughout the postseason. And, they had the week 18 resting of the players. People were like, I don't know if that's the right idea, if you're going to have a bye week, but it's proven to be the right move. And Chiefs are going into this game 1.5 point favorites. Um, I mean, it's probably going to end up a really tight game, as we know with the Chiefs. They are in a lot of one score games this year. And so being 1.5 point favorites, not surprised there. The number too of over and under 48.5, not surprised with that either. I do anticipate we're going to see a high scoring game with the Eagles scoring 55 against
Yep.
Washington a few weeks ago. The Chiefs can put up big numbers as long as Mahomes is back there. It's going to be a high power game. But we talked about where these points are going to be scored. You had an interesting take on that.
Yeah, I do. So you were talking about the Kansas City Chiefs. I like them covering the 1.5 points. I like that. I like the over on that as well. Some more numbers I like. Patrick Mahomes, his first plus odds are at 275 yards at plus 160. Versus Jalen Hurts, first plus odds are 225 yards at plus 116. So lower odds, and I have a lot less faith in Jalen Hurts to make those yardage than Patrick Mahomes. Another interesting one is Saquon Barkley, anytime touchdown, minus 195. I like that as well. Um, so I put this into a four-pick parlay, KC to cover the 1.5. Patrick Mahomes is 275, Saquon to get a touchdown, and the over 48.5, and that'll bring us to plus 950 odds. So that's a nice little nugget if you guys want to choose that and ride that ride with me. Obviously, nothing's a guarantee, but I really like that. I really like the numbers, and I really like the favor how it'll favor the teams.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Thanks for your tidbit on how to bet ahead of this game here. It's certainly going to be helpful. And I definitely think covering is not going to be a problem for the Chiefs. And I do like the over on that
Yeah.
as well. We're going to get to the picks later on. But is there anything else you wanted to touch on with the bets, or You said this is it. This is good. You're going to go with this, and you're going to make some money.
This is good. I like this. There's a lot of oversaturation sometimes with what to do, what not to do. I think we see Patrick Mahomes in big time games. It's going to be the Patrick Mahomes show. And don't get scared when the first half, if we see a low scoring game. We've seen this movie so many times. Both these teams love to turn it up in the second half. So don't get nervous when you see Patrick Mahomes only have 125 passing yards at the first half, or even less, possibly. Don't get nervous. You know how he likes to play football. You know how he likes to turn it up the second half. So I could see it being a very low scoring first half, shootout second half.
Yeah, I love the take. And don't fret over betting with weather being incorporated because it's in a dome. But if you are heading to the game, we'll go over the forecast real quickly, and then we're going to go over something new called the Core Four. But just a quick look at the forecast for New Orleans. If you're tailgating, you're outside. It does look like pretty good weather. We're talking temperatures in the upper 70s. Being in New York right now, that sounds absolutely nice. A bit of warmer weather than it is here. There's a small chance of a few spotty showers. I have it at 20%. Probably not going to see a lot of wet weather during the tailgate forecast. So overall, we're looking at pretty good conditions. And if you have to travel to New Orleans from wherever you're coming from, it doesn't look like any big weather impacts across the southeast. Now, if you are coming from the Northeast U.S., there's some big snow there, but the focus is the New Orleans tailgate, and there are not going to be any problems weather-wise, as opposed to when we looked at the forecast just a couple of weeks ago.
I think they've been tailgating out there all week.
That's how it is in New Orleans.
Yeah, it is. And the Super Bowl helps them amplify it. That's for sure.
All right, so do you want to get to this new thing you've proposed called the Core Four? What Cam and I are going to do is we're going to pick four players that you might not know the names of, but we believe could make an impact. And we've chosen eight different players. So my Core Four are different than Cam's Core Four. Why don't you start us off?
Okay, I will. And I love this segment because we like to show love to the DBs, the people in the trenches, the people who don't get a whole lot of love. So a lot of those kind of players will get some love. And I'll start off my first player to watch, Lewis Cine. I like Lewis Cine a lot. Coming out of Georgia, he was drafted by the Minnesota Vikings, 32nd overall in 2022, followed by week 4, horrific leg fracture. He was never able to get the ball rolling. Signed with Buffalo's practice squad this season, and right before the playoffs started, signed to Philadelphia's team. So it'd be awesome to see him make a special teams play and come from, his journey, that just to get on the field. To see him in the biggest stage would just be cool, even if it's on special teams, just to have impact on the game. And he's from Georgia. Georgia people on the Eagles, they just ball out. So you love to see it. My next player is going to be Trey Smith. You've heard me talk about him before. I'm a huge fan of Trey Smith and his game, former 6th-round pick, that Kansas City's kept him on his team this whole time. And this may be his last game as a Chief, but he could go out winning 3 straight Super Bowls. He's a mauler. Um, Came from his blood clots in his lungs in 2020. So it's awesome to see him on this stage for the 3rd time in a row and just battling through and getting it done in the trenches. Speaking of getting it done in the trenches, let's go to the other team with a man in the trenches who's had a resurgence this year in Mekhi Becton at 25 years old, 6'7", 363 pounds. He is also having a resurgence year. He was the former 1st-round pick by the Jets in 2020 as well. A lot of these people are from the 2020 draft. Um, but things didn't work out with him in New York. They tried to start him at tackle, and he just didn't perform well. Frankly, he battled with injuries and poor performance. Philadelphia, they signed him. They saw he was a physical asset, and they moved him inside at guard, and he's had the best season by far of his NFL career. So I predict that we'll continue to see his dominance in that game and in the run game. And my final core 4 player, Anyone who knows me will not be surprised by this, but it's Jaden Hicks, safety for the Kansas City Chiefs. I love this man's game. Absolute menace in the center field. Rookie from Washington State, fourth round pick. Um, just as a thumper in the middle of the field and a ball hawk. You don't see the two a lot, but he covers the field, rangy, athletic, um, can make the hits, always has a nose for the ball. You just see him making plays. So I expect to see Jaden Hicks make a big time play in this Super Bowl. And that is my core four players that I expect to have a big impact, even though they may have a smaller name.
Yeah, so if you missed anything regarding Trey Smith and the blood clots, we've got kind of a spiel. That's Cam's spiel back in one of our other older podcasts. So you'll have to check that out. Really, really good stuff. Not surprised you went with Trey Smith there. As we talked about, we've got different players, and I'm going to start off with my two Philadelphia players that I'm watching in the core four. Jahan Dotson is going to be number one. You've got two premier wide receivers on the outside for Philadelphia in A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Those guys are going to be covered. So don't forget about Jahan Dotson in the middle of the field, maybe making those third down plays where you need a guy to make a catch and everyone's covered on the back. And he can obviously run past those linebackers in the middle of the field. There's a little bit of a weakness there in Kansas City. So I like to see Jahan Dotson making some plays in the middle of the field. You flip it on the other side for Philadelphia on the defense. We have a lot of names. Cooper DeJean. We've got Jalen Carter in the middle.
Mm.
And then you've got Nakobe Dean on the edge. How about Zach Bond, who's in the middle at linebacker for the Philadelphia Eagles? This guy has been going up on charts all year long, but he stayed quiet in a sense for some people who aren't familiar with the Philadelphia Eagles because he's not one of those big names I just talked about. He is a speedy linebacker that can challenge receivers in the middle of the field. So if he's covering a running back or a slot receiver, I think Zach Bond is going to be able to win those one-on-ones. He's got similar intensity to Alex Anzalone, where he's just a ball hawk. So I really like Zach Bond on the defensive side for the Eagles. Now, switching gears to the Kansas City Chiefs, there are a couple of names who have been with the Kansas City Chiefs for a while. You know, Travis Kelce is a big target tight end, probably going to go to Xavier Worthy down the seam at times. But don't forget about Justin Watson. He seems to make plays in some of the biggest games for the Kansas City Chiefs, going back to previous playoff games. I think Justin Watson is going to be a guy to watch in the middle of the field. And last, it pains me to say this as a former CMU Chippewa, but a former Toledo Rocket in Kareem Hunt has been huge for the Chiefs in this playoff run. Just being able to run the ball similar to Saquon Barkley. Kareem Hunt's not the same running back as Barkley, but he can do the same type of stuff, that hard run and
Mm.
the first and goal, second and goal, third and goal situations. So I like Kareem Hunt being my last of the core four to help rack up some points for the Kansas City Chiefs.
I love the evolution of Kareem Hunt. We've seen him come into the league as a speedy scat back, go into a third down back, and now develop almost into a power back role. It's weird to see the evolution of his game, but he always plays his role, whatever it is, to a very, very high level.
So you want to go with our picks for the game?
Yes, our picks for the game. I'm going Kansas City Chiefs to cover the 1.5 point spread. Absolutely no doubt in my mind. I have so much faith that the Kansas City Chiefs will get it done. They will three-peat, the first team in NFL history. I just have faith in them. I can't bet against Patrick Mahomes. I just can't do it. And I'm also going to bet the over on it. Like I was saying earlier, I expect it to be a shootout the second half. Both these teams kind of start off slow, but if Philadelphia starts out hot the way they did last week, oh my gosh, we could have a barn burner on our hands, an absolute shootout. Which is funny because they're both two very good defensive teams as well. But what a game!
It's either going to start one of two ways, exactly how you said, a slow start. But if these teams just get going quick and we get touchdown, 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 I think we're going to be in for a really exciting game nonetheless. I also could see it being 21-3 Philadelphia at halftime, and then Kansas City comes rolling back in the second half. Either way, Kansas City is going to take this win. I like the 1.5 points, and I do like the over on this too, as mentioned before. So shootout, but I think three-peat is coming for the Kansas City Chiefs.
I think so too. I think so too.
Hey, and then after the big game, it's all about the off season, and well, we've got a lot more content to talk about in terms of free agency. I know we've been teasing this for weeks now, but we've got a quarterback free agency podcast that's coming up next week on Saturday night. So that's going to be a fun one to watch. We're also going to be recapping the big game on Tuesday night. So you'll want to be around for that. And then a whole lot of content for the off season. The big reason why we started this podcast is because we have the takes. We say this every week, and we're going to continue to say this every week, but particularly when it comes to the off season. So I'm super excited at what we've got coming over the next few weeks.
It may be the big game this week, but our big game is coming up in a couple months with the NFL draft.
Yes, and this is a high goal. We're going to put it into video so we talk about existence. But
Yeah.
our goal by the time we get to the draft is have a live stream during the NFL draft and have real-time reactions. And hopefully you can join us there at that point in time. But to go live, we need followers. So make sure you like, subscribe to the video. And of course, if you ever have any comments, questions, concerns, we're here to answer them. Don't forget about Instagram and TikTok. Cam's been doing a real good job updating that stuff. Follow us at the Lowdown Podcast on both platforms.
And don't be afraid to disagree. These are our opinions. If you guys have different ones, let's go back and forth. We'll communicate. We'll talk to you guys. We'll see. We love hearing great football takes, and we love doing this. So thank you guys for everyone who's watching, and subscribe, watch, and share.
And we'll see you in the next video.
See you in the next video.